The 6 dangerous people Carl Jung says you must avoid. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. In today's video from Spiritual Wisdom, we're diving deep into a powerful message from Jung that could change the way you protect your energy and peace. Jung warned us about 6 types of people whose hidden behaviors can drain your spirit, distort your path, and quietly sabotage your growth. Are any of them in your life right now? As you watch, reflect on your relationships, then comment below. I choose peace over chaos. Your story might just help someone else awaken too. Let's explore this together. 1. The unconscious manipulator. The unconscious manipulator is one of the most dangerous people you can encounter, not because they intend to harm you, but because they don't know they're doing it. Beneath the surface of their charm and emotional depth lies a pattern of hidden projections and unresolved wounds. They carry pain they've never faced, and instead of processing that pain within, they unknowingly hand it to you. You become their emotional mirror, their savior, their energetic sponge. This person doesn't necessarily shout about their suffering. Often, they whisper it through subtle behaviors, passive remarks, victimhood cloaked in vulnerability, and silent expectations that you carry what they refuse to confront. You find yourself feeling responsible for their well-being, even though you never agreed to that contract. You start doubting your instincts, second-guessing your boundaries, and slowly, your emotional clarity becomes fogged with their inner chaos. They don't just want attention, they crave energetic hosting. You become a character in their inner drama without realizing you've been cast. They draw you in with sincerity, maybe even affection. You care for them. You try to help. You tell yourself they're just going through something, and maybe if you love them enough, they'll heal. But what's really happening is far more spiritual than psychological. They are projecting what they refuse to see in themselves onto you, and through that projection, they feed off your emotional strength. Carl Jung called this the danger of projection. When someone refuses to integrate their shadow, the guilt, the shame, the fear they cast those disowned pieces outward, you're not interacting with their truth, you're engaging with a distortion. And because it's unconscious, it escapes logic and bypasses confrontation. You can't talk them out of it because they don't even know it's happening. That's what makes it spiritually treacherous. It feels like love, but it's really a psychic entanglement disguised as compassion. You begin to notice how drained you feel after every interaction. Your energy dips, but your guilt spikes. You feel obligated, even when you want to pull away. You begin carrying their burdens without knowing where yours end and theirs begin. In spiritual wisdom, this is a form of energetic trespassing when someone unconsciously invades your field with their unhealed wounds and makes your soul responsible for their unconscious healing. True love doesn't require you to lose yourself. True connection doesn't ask you to abandon your clarity. When you find yourself constantly rescuing, over-explaining, or walking on emotional eggshells, you must stop and ask, is this real love? Or is this trauma trying to reenact itself in disguise? You are not here to be someone's emotional landfill. You are here to evolve. You are here to awaken. And spiritual growth demands that you recognize when your empathy is being weaponized against you. Some connections aren't sacred. They're spiritual lessons in disguise. You're not being cruel by walking away. you're honoring your soul. And sometimes, the most healing thing you can do for someone is to stop enabling the very patterns that are keeping them stuck. It's not your job to carry what they refuse to hold. Let go. Not with resentment, but with truth. Because as Jung wisely said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And your fate is far too precious to be entangled in someone else's denial. Have you ever found yourself emotionally drained after helping someone who never truly wants to heal? If so, share your story in the comments so others can relate and learn. If not, comment, "I will protect my energy," to commit to setting healthy boundaries and reclaiming your peace. Let's support each other on this journey of awareness and emotional freedom. 2. The bearer of the persona. The bearer of the persona is someone who has become a polished illusion so deeply attached to their social mask that they forget it's a mask at all. Polite, composed, and seemingly perfect, they navigate life as if it were a stage. Every gesture is rehearsed, every word filtered through the lens of public approval. But beneath that shiny surface, there is no spontaneity, no raw emotion, no truth. Carl Jung warned us of this kind of person, not because they are outwardly cruel, but because their subtle influence suffocates authenticity, both theirs and yours. When someone clings to their persona, vulnerability becomes threatening. They avoid emotional truth, not only in themselves, but in everyone around them. Instead of connection, they offer performance. Instead of presence, they offer presentation. They pressure others to match their polished facade, to uphold the same image-driven reality they inhabit. In time, you find yourself performing too smiling when you're hurting, nodding when you disagree, suppressing your own emotional depth so you don't disrupt their surface-level harmony. This dynamic is more than uncomfortable. It's spiritually dangerous. Carl Jung believed that the path to individuation, the journey toward becoming your whole self, demands truth, courage, and the willingness to embrace all that is raw and real within you. But the bearer of the persona blocks that path. Their mask isn't just their own burden, it becomes yours too. Being around them creates a quiet, creeping distortion. You forget what it's like to speak from the heart. You trade emotional honesty for acceptance. You dim your light to fit inside their glass cage of perfection. It happens slowly. Like Emily, a rising professional who admired her manager's composure. He was poised and graceful in meetings, always said the right thing, always looked the part. But as months passed, Emily realized she was no longer speaking up. She avoided sharing bold ideas. She began overthinking every conversation, worried about how she'd be perceived. Without realizing it, she had begun to wear her own mask, one that reflected his. What seemed like mentorship turned out to be mimicry. His emotional distance had spread like smoke, clouding her confidence. That's the silent danger Carl Jung wanted us to see. A person who lives entirely in their persona lives disconnected from their soul, and being in their presence can pull you away from yours. There's no joy in a relationship where everything must be filtered, every truth softened, every instinct restrained. What looks like grace may be repression. What feels like order may be a lack of inner freedom. And when you mirror their persona too long, your spirit begins to whisper, "This is not who I am." Spiritual wisdom teaches that to grow, we must surround ourselves with those who welcome truth, who allow us to be messy, tender, real. A person buried in their persona cannot give you that space. They can only give you a mirror for their mask. And if you're not careful, you'll wear it so long, you'll forget your own face. Are you ready to take off the mask and live as your true self? If so, comment below. I choose authenticity to affirm your commitment to inner truth and self-liberation. Let's break free from performance and walk the path of individuation together. 3. The owner of the repressed shadow. They appear calm, collected, and morally upright, always composed, always in control. You might even admire them. But behind this polished mask hides a psychological storm waiting to break loose. Carl Jung called them the owners of the repressed shadow people, who reject the parts of themselves they deem unacceptable. They suppress their anger, their envy, their desires, even their sadness. Not because they are above these emotions, but because they fear them. They fear what these feelings say about who they are. And so, they bury them deep in the unconscious, pretending they don't exist. But the shadow doesn't vanish. It accumulates. Every unspoken truth, every feeling swallowed instead of expressed, becomes fuel for a silent fire. Jung warned that the unconscious, when ignored, doesn't stay passive. It grows in power, waiting for a crack in the surface. And when that crack comes, it doesn't whisper, it explodes. A small comment, a moment of stress, or someone else's emotional honesty can suddenly trigger a sharp and disproportionate outburst. You'll be caught off guard, wondering what just happened. And it won't be a one-time event. Living with someone like this is like walking across a psychological minefield. Everything seems fine until it isn't. These individuals are often the first to shame or criticize others for showing emotion. They see vulnerability as weakness, passion as instability. But what they truly despise in others is what they've never allowed themselves to feel. Their criticism is not insight, it's projection. Jung said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." But for the repressed shadow, there is no reflection, only rejection. They do not see their emotional wounds. They only see your reactions. What makes this dynamic so toxic is that it distorts your sense of reality. You might begin to feel emotionally small around them. You hesitate to speak your truth. You second-guess your feelings. Slowly, you start to wonder, am I overreacting? Am I too sensitive? But it's not you. It's the weight of their unprocessed darkness pressing down on your light. The shadow, Jung taught, is not just a container for evil. It's also the hiding place of your creativity, your strength, your deepest potential. When someone represses it, they don't just lose access to their pain, they lose access to their power. And that loss poisons their relationships. Because intimacy requires authenticity. Connection requires vulnerability. And those who live in denial of their shadow cannot offer either. Spiritual awakening demands that we see clearly, both in others and within ourselves. Not everyone who seems peaceful is truly at peace. Not everyone who looks stable is emotionally safe. You must learn to sense what lies beneath the surface. You must honor your own emotional truth, even when someone else cannot hold it. Because the journey to inner freedom begins where suppression ends. And the greatest act of spiritual wisdom is to choose relationships where your soul can breathe. If you're ready to face your own shadow with honesty and courage, and to stop absorbing the emotional fallout of others' repression, comment below, "I choose emotional truth." Let's walk this path of healing and self-integration together. 4. The moral controller. The moral controller is one of the most deceptive dangers Carl Jung warned us about because they don't wear the face of a villain. Instead, they come cloaked in virtue. They speak as though they are protecting the good, upholding truth, or guiding others to become better. But beneath that polished exterior is a deep psychological defense, projection. Jung's spiritual wisdom reveals that those who obsess over morality often do so because they cannot face their own unconscious impulses. They condemn others not out of love, but to avoid confronting their own shadow. In doing so, they turn morality into a weapon, not a compass, and use guilt as a method of control. They don't shout or attack outright. They suggest. They imply. They say things like, "I'm just concerned," or "I'm only trying to help." But the help always comes with shame. You begin to feel wrong for simply being yourself. Your laughter is too loud. Your ideas are too rebellious. Your joy is too much. Over time, you shrink not because you're bad, but because you've been made to feel bad for being human. Jung emphasized that excessive moralism is often a sign of internal repression. The more someone tries to control your behavior through moral critique, the more likely they are running from their own unresolved darkness. This is especially dangerous in families, where love is supposed to be unconditional. But for the moral controller, love becomes conditional on obedience. The child who is free-spirited, emotional, or curious becomes a threat. They're punished, not for wrongdoing, but for disturbing the parent's fragile inner image of order. In religion, the same pattern repeats. The moral controller uses doctrine not to heal, but to shame. They quote sacred texts, but forget the spirit behind them. Instead of guiding souls to freedom, they bind them in fear. The result is not spiritual awakening. It is suppression, fear, and performance. In strict institutions or belief systems, the moral controller enforces conformity. Individuality becomes a crime. Self-expression is labeled selfish. Dissent is rebellion against truth. Jung's teaching on individuation becomes essential here. The path to wholeness is not about fitting into a mold. It is about integrating all parts of ourselves, including the messy, complex, and emotional aspects that moral controllers want to erase. True spiritual wisdom embraces this paradox. It sees that growth comes not through perfection, but through honesty with our shadow. You'll know you're in the presence of a moral controller when you constantly feel small, guilty, or like you're walking on eggshells. Their energy doesn't invite authenticity. It demands compliance. And yet, they rarely see themselves as controlling. They think they're righteous. That's the most dangerous part. As Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The moral controller is being directed by their unconscious, and until they face it, they will try to direct yours. Trust your inner compass. True morality uplifts. It does not humiliate. It liberates. It does not bind. It comes from awareness, not projection. When morality is used to shame rather than to guide with compassion, it has ceased to be moral. If this message helped you see the hidden dynamics of moral control, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's break free from shame-based systems and support each other on the path to deeper self-awareness and true spiritual wisdom. 5. The complexed person. The complexed person lives in a constant storm of unresolved emotional wounds, often hidden beneath a surface of charm or sensitivity. One day, they're warm and affectionate. The next, they're cold irrational, or unpredictably angry. This instability isn't just confusing, it pulls you into their inner chaos. You begin shrinking yourself, tiptoeing around their triggers, and carrying the emotional weight they refuse to face. The more you try to create peace, the more you lose pieces of yourself. Carl Jung described these individuals as being dominated by complexes, psychic fragments formed by trauma. These complexes, according to Jung, function like splinter personalities. They can hijack the person's behavior and emotions, making them act in ways that seem completely disconnected from the present moment. You're not interacting with the adult in front of you. You're confronting their abandoned pain, their rejected self, their unhealed memories. And the more unconscious these complexes are, the more powerful and destructive they become. In daily life, this shows up as emotional whiplash. One moment they're praising you, the next they're tearing you down for a slight that never existed. You're accused of being insensitive, unloving, or distant simply because their inner wounds are speaking louder than reality. You begin to feel like you're always doing damage control. But no matter how careful you are, it's never enough. You start to question yourself, your intentions, even your worth. That's the power of a complexed person. They don't just cause confusion, they make you doubt your truth. Spiritual wisdom calls us to compassion, but also to discernment. You can hold space for someone's pain, but you cannot let it become your prison. You are not the antidote to their trauma. You are not responsible for the healing they refuse to do. Carl Jung warned that when someone refuses to confront their unconscious, that unconscious will control them and in turn harm others. These people are not evil, but they are unsafe until they become aware. In today's world, these individuals might be colleagues, partners, even family members. You may think you're helping by staying, by softening, by sacrificing. But emotional instability, when repeated and unchecked, becomes a form of manipulation, whether intentional or not. Every time you deny your own needs to avoid triggering theirs, you abandon your own center. Every time you excuse their chaos, you normalize the erosion of your peace. The truth is, you cannot love someone into healing. You cannot stabilize someone who hasn't chosen to become whole. And you cannot continue shrinking just to make someone else feel big. As Jung taught, the work of integrating one's shadow, one's trauma, is deeply personal. No one can do it for you, and no one should suffer because you've refused to. The complex person isn't dangerous because they're broken. They're dangerous because they're unaware. An unconscious pain will always look for someone else to carry it. Don't let that someone be you. If you've made it this far, comment below, "I'm staying aware," to show your presence and focus. Your voice matters. Every comment helps us grow this space for healing, clarity, and spiritual insight. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if this message spoke to you. 6. The psychic vampire. A psychic vampire doesn't always come cloaked in darkness. Often, they arrive in the form of a friend, a partner, or even a family member, someone who appears emotionally fragile, always in need, constantly seeking attention, validation, or comfort. At first, you respond with compassion. You listen, you offer support, you show up. But slowly, something shifts. Without realizing it, you begin to feel tired after every interaction, confused about where your energy went, guilty for wanting space. This is not a coincidence, it's a pattern. Psychic vampires don't want to grow or heal. They want to be carried. and it's always you who ends up doing the heavy lifting. Carl Jung observed this deeply destructive dynamic and offered spiritual wisdom that pierces through the illusion. He believed that psychic vampires are individuals who have failed to individuate, who have not yet awakened spiritually to their own inner self. Instead of drawing strength from within, they latch onto others, feeding off emotional energy like it's their only lifeline. Jung wrote, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." And this avoidance, this refusal to go inward, makes them cling outward to you. They don't see you as a person. They see you as a source. You'll notice that they often play the victim, subtly manipulating others through guilt, tears, or helplessness. They may not even realize they're doing it, but the result is the same: a toxic symbiosis, where your role becomes to emotionally rescue someone who never truly wants to be rescued. You feel responsible for their sadness, obligated to respond to every emotional crisis, expected to drop everything just to keep them afloat. Over time, this dynamic dissolves your sense of self. You stop asking, "What do I feel?" because you're too busy trying to manage what they feel. Spiritual awakening is not just about enlightenment. It's also about recognizing what dims your light. And nothing does that more quietly than a psychic vampire. They don't scream. They sigh. They don't demand. They imply. But make no mistake, the damage is real. The exhaustion, the anxiety, the emotional depletion, these are signs that your energy field is being drained. And if you ignore those signs for too long, you begin to lose touch with your own center. You begin to confuse overgiving with kindness, guilt with love, sacrifice with purpose. In truth, protecting your energy is not selfish, it's sacred. Jung's spiritual wisdom reminds us that real healing can only happen when a person faces their own unconscious shadow. If they refuse to do that inner work, no amount of your compassion will fill that void. You are not responsible for someone else's refusal to awaken. Your light is not meant to keep another person's darkness at bay. You are meant to walk your own path, not carry someone who won't move their feet. If someone in your life leaves you feeling consistently drained, confused, or guilty, listen to that feeling. It's not weakness, it's your soul speaking. And your soul knows when it's being robbed of its light. If this message has helped you recognize the hidden drainers in your life, leave a comment of awareness. I protect my energy and honor my peace. Your story might be the light someone else needs to finally break free. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another insight on your path to spiritual wisdom and emotional freedom. Thank you for joining us on this eye-opening journey through Carl Jung's timeless wisdom. The people we allow into our lives shape not only our mindset, but also our destiny. By becoming aware of these dangerous personality types, you're already taking a powerful step toward protecting your peace and preserving your energy. If you found this message valuable, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a moment of clarity, growth, and transformation in our upcoming videos. Stay mindful, stay empowered, and as always, protect your spirit. Life begins when you find yourself. He who looks outside dreams. He who looks inside awakens. Carl Jung. Have you ever wondered if the life you're living is truly yours, or just a reflection of what others expect you to be? In today's video from Spiritual Wisdom, we'll explore one of Jung's most powerful truths. Life doesn't truly begin until you find yourself. This isn't just philosophy, it's a call to transformation. As you watch, ask yourself, what part of me have I been ignoring? If this message resonates, comment below with, I am ready to find myself, and share how you're beginning to live more authentically. Your journey starts now. Let's walk it together. 1. The false self and social conditioning. From early childhood, we are shaped by invisible hands, family expectations, cultural norms, and societal rules, all pressing us to conform. We're taught what is acceptable and what is not. Slowly, without even realizing it, we begin to edit ourselves. We hide our wildness, our questions, our tears, and even our dreams just to be loved, approved of, or simply to avoid rejection. This suppression is not a conscious decision. It's survival. Over time, we construct a version of ourselves that functions well in the world, but feels empty inside. Carl Jung called this version the persona, a mask we wear to gain social approval, a role we play to avoid judgment. And yet, while the world applauds this mask, the authentic self quietly disappears into the shadows. The deeper tragedy is that many people go through life never realizing the extent to which they've been conditioned. They chase degrees, relationships, careers, even spiritual practices, thinking they are making free choices, when in truth, they are simply obeying the scripts handed to them. They mistake their success for fulfillment, only to find that despite having everything, something vital is missing. That missing piece is the true self, the part that was silenced, buried, or forgotten. It's the voice that says, "This isn't really me." And until that voice is heard, no amount of external validation will ever feel like enough. Spiritual wisdom teaches that life begins not when we are born, but when we start remembering who we truly are. This remembering requires courage, the courage to question, to confront, and to break away. You begin by asking, whose life am I living? And when the answer shocks you, you don't run. You listen. You listen to the memories you avoided, the longings you dismissed, the feelings you numbed. Because those are the breadcrumbs that lead you back home, the home within. The process of returning to the self isn't glamorous. It's often messy, emotional, and lonely. You might outgrow relationships. You might disappoint your family. You might lose the false comfort of fitting in. But what you gain in return is real. Clarity, peace, freedom. You stop performing. You stop pleasing. You stop living in fragments. And in their place, you begin to live in wholeness. Your yes means yes. Your no means no. Your presence feels different, not louder, but deeper. People may not understand you, but they feel your truth. And in that truth lies your power. This is the essence of awakening, not to become someone new, but to remove what you are not. To dissolve the lies that kept you small. To reclaim the parts of you that were cast aside in order to survive. This is the path of spiritual wisdom. It is not a path for everyone, but it is the only path for those who want to feel alive, not just exist. Have you ever questioned the mask you wear in daily life? If you've begun uncovering your authentic self, share your experience in the comments to inspire others on the same path. If you haven't yet, simply comment, "I choose to unmask," to declare your commitment to living more truthfully. Let's awaken together. 2. The Shadow and Repression. The shadow, as Carl Jung defines it, is not some distant concept, but a deeply personal reality composed of all the parts of ourselves we try to hide, deny, or suppress. These aren't only our fears or flaws. They include our unspoken desires, buried traumas, and even our hidden strengths. What we refuse to face doesn't vanish. It sinks below the surface of our awareness and begins to shape our lives in silence. We think we're in control, but the truth is, the shadow operates like an unseen puppeteer, pulling emotional strings through projections, triggers, and irrational reactions. You might notice it when you judge someone harshly for traits you were taught to reject in yourself. The confident coworker who rubs you the wrong way might reflect the assertiveness you've long repressed. The overly sensitive friend may stir discomfort in you because you were once punished for expressing emotion. These everyday encounters reveal the power of the unconscious. The more we deny these buried parts of ourselves, the louder they become, not with words, but through repeated emotional patterns and life experiences that challenge us to pay attention. Modern life makes shadow work both more difficult and more necessary. In a world that rewards conformity and image, we're encouraged to polish ourselves into acceptable versions, editing out the wild, the raw, the real. But doing so fractures the soul. People wear smiles while silently burning out. They chase success while ignoring the quiet voice, urging them to rest or create or change paths. They reject feelings like anger, jealousy, or fear, unaware that those emotions are not signs of weakness, but messages from the shadow asking to be heard, honored, and integrated. Carl Jung didn't believe in perfection. He believed in wholeness, and wholeness doesn't come from pretending to be only the light. It comes from embracing the dark too. Integration requires courage. It's the willingness to stop running from yourself and instead ask, what part of me have I disowned? Healing begins not when we fix ourselves, but when we become radically honest. Not to shame, but to reclaim. Even your pain can be a portal. What wounds you may also wake you. Beneath every suppressed emotion is energy. And when that energy is brought into the light of consciousness, it becomes power. The anger you feared may actually be your boundary. The fear you avoided may be your instinct. The grief you buried may be your deepest source of compassion. Jung called this the gold in the shadow. You are not just your surface self. There is a vast, unexplored world within you waiting to be known, not controlled. This is the essence of spiritual wisdom, not to rise above your humanity, but to descend into it fully and emerge with understanding. The shadow is not your enemy. It's your invitation. An invitation to return to yourself, to stop hiding, and to live from a place of integrated truth. When you bring awareness to the unconscious, you shift the direction of your life. No longer reactive, no longer projecting, you become sovereign. As Jung said, life begins when you find yourself. And finding yourself begins by turning toward what you once turned away from. Comment below, I embrace my shadow, if you're ready to face what you've hidden and reclaim your true power. Let this be your first step toward inner wholeness. 3. The journey of individuation. Individuation, as Carl Jung described it, is not about self-improvement, but about becoming whole. It's the sacred process of integrating every part of who you are, the joyful and the wounded, the light and the shadow. Most people misunderstand growth as a journey toward becoming better, when in truth, it's about becoming honest. You don't need to upgrade yourself into someone else's version of enough. You need to meet yourself, perhaps for the first time, with raw honesty and deep compassion. A true spiritual awakening begins when you stop running from discomfort. Pain, confusion, and even fear are not enemies. They are messengers, each holding a piece of the truth you've buried beneath survival. When you ignore or reject those parts of yourself, you divide your soul. But when you turn inward with open eyes, you begin to remember who you were before the world taught you to forget. The journey of individuation is a sacred invitation, not to become better, but to become real. The shadow, a term Jung used to describe the unconscious parts of us we disown, is not evil. It is simply unseen. Until we bring it to light, it continues to control our behavior, limit our relationships, and shape our sense of destiny without our awareness. But when we face it not with judgment, but with love, it transforms. This is why facing yourself honestly is one of the most courageous acts you will ever do. Because when you stop pretending, healing begins. You cannot become whole if you deny half of yourself. Imagine living in a house where only a few lights are ever turned on. You would keep bumping into things, mistaking shadows for threats. But the moment you illuminate every room, every emotion, memory, and truth, you begin to navigate life with clarity. That is what individuation offers. Clarity, not perfection. Integration, not suppression. And wholeness, not fragmentation. This is where life truly begins, not when everything feels good, but when you finally become strong enough to feel it all. To stand in your truth without apology. To walk through fear without needing to armor your heart. You become untouchable not by building walls, but by becoming so rooted in your authenticity that nothing external can shake you. In the end, this journey is not about achieving something outside yourself. It is about returning to who you've always been beneath the noise. It is a homecoming to your own soul. And once you arrive, you will never again be willing to abandon yourself for anyone or anything. That is the quiet power of spiritual awakening. The moment you stop hiding is the moment you start living. Are you ready to become whole and embrace your true self? If so, comment below. I choose to face myself, to affirm your commitment to the journey of individuation. Let this be your first step toward inner truth and authentic transformation. 4. The role of the unconscious. The unconscious mind is not merely a storage of forgotten thoughts. It is a living, breathing realm of hidden truths. Beneath our daily awareness, it quietly shapes our reactions, beliefs, and emotional patterns. Carl Jung taught that the unconscious holds not only suppressed wounds from childhood, but also unacknowledged desires and truths we were never taught to face. These unseen elements don't disappear. They operate in the background, directing your life in ways you cannot control until you choose to illuminate them. That tight feeling of anxiety you can't explain, the subtle sabotage of your own success, or the recurring sense of being lost, they are not coincidences. They are the fingerprints of the unconscious, asking to be seen. Many of the cycles we relive, like attracting the same kind of pain in different relationships, or repeatedly falling into procrastination, are not flaws in character, but echoes from the unconscious. Without understanding where these patterns come from, we live on autopilot, falsely believing that this is just the way life is. But through spiritual wisdom, we begin to understand that these patterns are not punishments. They are messages. The life you long for cannot unfold until the unconscious becomes conscious. That's why the path of spiritual awakening isn't just about meditation or positive thinking. It's about turning toward the shadows you've been taught to ignore. Dreams are the gateway. Jung saw dreams not as random mental static, but as deeply intentional messages from the unconscious. In dreams, the truth that your waking mind avoids is spoken through symbols, archetypes, and emotion. You may dream of being chased, of falling, of flying, of encountering strange figures, each a mirror of your inner terrain. When interpreted with care, these symbols reveal what the unconscious already knows: where you're hurting, what you need, and who you really are beneath the roles you've been playing. This is where spiritual wisdom becomes transformational. It's not abstract theory, it's the roadmap home. Symbols show up beyond dreams too, in the art you're drawn to, the stories that move you, the emotional triggers that won't let go. Everything your unconscious creates is rooted in purpose. Every recurring emotion is an unopened letter from the soul. When you avoid these messages, you remain fragmented, chasing fulfillment in the outer world. But when you face them, you reclaim pieces of yourself. Through journaling, introspection, and attention to your inner life, you begin to integrate the parts you once rejected. And integration is power, not domination over others, but mastery of self. True spiritual wisdom teaches that healing is not found in escaping pain, but in embracing it with clarity. You don't need to become someone new. You need to remember who you were before fear taught you to hide. The unconscious does not exist to punish you. It exists to guide you back to wholeness. As you journey deeper into it, you don't just discover the roots of your suffering, you awaken the source of your strength. That is the essence of individuation. That is where life, real life, begins. If this message resonates with your soul, and you're ready to uncover the truth within, repeat after me. I am ready to explore my unconscious. I trust what it reveals is meant to heal me. Let this be your first step toward transformation. 5. Archetypes, universal patterns within. Carl Jung believed that within each of us live ancient universal patterns called archetypes, timeless energies like the hero, the shadow, the mentor, and more. These forces don't arise from personal experience alone, but from the collective memory of humanity. Jung called this deep reservoir of shared memory the collective unconscious. It shapes how we think, how we relate, how we dream, and how we act, often without our knowing. These archetypes act as inner templates, silently scripting our reactions, beliefs, and desires. The tragedy is that most people live out these patterns unconsciously, never realizing they're being driven by something far older and deeper than they imagined. The hero archetype pushes us to grow, take risks, and transcend our limitations. But before the hero can rise, the shadow must be confronted. The shadow is the part of us we disown, the fears we bury, the anger we hide, the pain we deny. It's the voice that says we're not good enough, not worthy, not ready. It's seductive in its comfort because it promises safety through avoidance. Yet Jung made it clear, what we resist persists. Only by facing the shadow does the hero within truly awaken. Take a young woman who appears to be successful, stable job, social approval, a life that looks ideal from the outside. But inside, she feels restless, disconnected, like she's living someone else's dream. That silent tension is the hero calling out. Desperate to break free, from the roles she's been conditioned to play. Her shadow, however, keeps whispering doubt, replaying every past failure, reminding her of the cost of change. She's not alone. Millions live in this quiet conflict, unknowingly caught in an archetypal struggle. The hero's journey, made famous by mythology and modern storytelling, lives inside each of us. It's not just about slaying dragons or finding treasure. It's the spiritual journey of self-integration, of making the unconscious conscious, of befriending your fear, of claiming the truth buried beneath your patterns. As Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Once you see the archetypes moving through you, you stop being a puppet of your past and begin becoming the author of your future. Spiritual wisdom teaches us that healing isn't about deleting parts of ourselves. It's about learning how to live with awareness, with intention, with compassion for every voice within. When you can pause in a difficult moment and ask, who is speaking through me right now? The wounded child, the abandoned lover, the silent sage, you begin to reclaim your power. You're no longer just reacting, you're choosing. And choice is where freedom begins. Carl Jung left us a map not of the world, but of the soul. To follow it is to walk the hero's path inward, through the confusion of the ego, into the clarity of integrated being. Only then does life truly begin, not when you change who you are, but when you finally understand what's been living inside you all along. Leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss powerful insights like this. If you're ready to awaken the hero within and live with deeper awareness, type in the comments, I embrace my inner archetypes. 6. The anima and animus, inner balance. Within every man lives the anima, the quiet, intuitive, emotional essence that holds the key to compassion and connection. And within every woman resides the animus, the decisive, bold, and assertive force that gives shape to courage and direction. These are not roles to perform, but energies to embrace. When we reject one half of ourselves, we don't become stronger, we become fragmented. A man who denies his anima often becomes emotionally detached, unable to access tenderness or vulnerability. A woman who suppresses her animus may struggle to speak her truth or take up space in the world. This split doesn't just affect behavior, it stunts the soul. Spiritual awakening begins when we recognize that our inner balance holds the power to transform not only how we relate to ourselves, but also how we show up in the world. Integration is the sacred act of wholeness, inviting both our feminine and masculine energies to coexist in harmony. Jung understood this when he wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Without knowing it, the neglected inner masculine or feminine silently dictates our choices, our pain, our patterns. But when we become aware, we gain the power to rewrite the story. In a world that teaches men to harden and women to yield, we must become conscious rebels. The spiritual path demands that we reclaim what we were told to suppress. True strength is not domination, it's balance. Real clarity doesn't come from pushing emotions away. It comes from listening to them without fear. To embrace your anima is to soften the armor, to let empathy and intuition guide your steps. To welcome your animus is to trust your voice, to act with resolve and speak with purpose. When these two forces dance together within, life becomes fluid, purposeful, and whole. Imagine a woman raised to be pleasing, agreeable, and quiet. Her animus has been buried beneath layers of shoulds and musts. But as she awakens spiritually, she begins to feel the fire she once feared. She starts setting boundaries, saying no, chasing dreams she once silenced. This is not rebellion, it's remembrance. Or picture a man taught never to cry, never to doubt. He has shut the door on his anima for years. Yet the day he allows himself to grieve, to feel deeply, he discovers a kind of strength no toughness ever gave him. This is not weakness, it's return. Spiritual wisdom is not about becoming someone new. It's about reclaiming the lost halves of yourself. When the anima and animus unite, you stop seeking balance in the world because you found it within. Integration brings emotional depth and inner power. It gives you the ability to listen deeply and act clearly. That's the mark of true transformation, not perfection, but wholeness. And that's where real life begins. Now, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and bring your awareness to the stillness within. Feel the balance of your inner masculine and feminine energies. Repeat after me. I honor both the anima and the animus within me. I am whole. If this message resonates with you, like this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any future insights on your journey to inner harmony. 7. The illusion of a fixed identity. The greatest illusion is the belief that you are a fixed self, unchanging, clearly defined, and separate from the world around you. This illusion, deeply ingrained by society and reinforced by the ego, convinces you that you must cling to a singular identity, a single story about who you are. But Carl Jung, along with ancient mystics, revealed a much deeper truth. The self is not solid, but fluid. You are not a static character in a script. You are a stream of consciousness, constantly evolving, expanding, and dissolving into the larger field of being. Spiritual wisdom teaches us that the more we identify with a rigid self, the more we disconnect from the infinite nature of who we truly are. The ego, in its attempt to protect and control, creates artificial walls. It assigns you roles, labels, and titles, each one acting like bricks in a psychological prison. I am this. I am not that. I can never change. These become unconscious mantras that limit your potential. And yet, these identities are often built out of fear and repetition rather than truth. The ego is afraid of the unknown, so it clings to what is familiar. But what is familiar is not always what is right for your soul. The more you defend these old stories, the more you resist the very transformation your spirit is calling you toward. Jung believed that the self is not an isolated island, but part of a vast sea of consciousness. In this view, spiritual awakening is not about finding a final version of yourself. It's about remembering that you were never separate to begin with. Your pain, your confusion, your growth, all of it exists within a dynamic process of becoming. Like waves rising and falling, you are meant to move, shift, and expand. Holding on to a fixed self is like trying to freeze the ocean. It is not only impossible, it is unnatural. The tragedy is that many people live their entire lives trying to preserve an identity that no longer fits. They cling to the version of themselves that once brought safety, approval, or survival, but what once protected you may now be the very thing preventing your evolution. Growth demands surrender. It requires shedding the skin of who you were so that who you truly are can breathe. And this is not weakness, it is wisdom. True spiritual wisdom does not come from defending your identity. It comes from dissolving it into truth. To live authentically, you must be willing to question your roles, your beliefs, and the stories you inherited. You must ask, who am I when the labels fall away? Who am I when I stop performing? When you become curious rather than attached, everything changes. You begin to see that you are not the mask. You are the awareness behind it. You are not the story. You are the storyteller. You are not your past. You are the space where transformation happens. And in that space, you finally remember. Life is not about becoming someone. It is about unbecoming everything you are not. That is where true freedom begins. That is the path of awakening. If this message has stirred something deep within you, leave a comment of truth. I am not my labels. I am evolving, expanding, and connected to something greater. Let go of the old stories and step into the freedom of who you are becoming. 8. The true self is vast and timeless. You are not your job title, your social persona, or even the sum of your past experiences. These are fragments of temporary roles you've learned to play. Beneath them all exists something far more profound. Carl Jung taught that the true self is vast and timeless, rooted not in external identity, but in an eternal core that connects you to something larger than yourself. This self isn't just a concept. It is the totality of who you are, conscious and unconscious, light and shadow, personal and collective. It carries inherited wisdom, ancestral patterns, and the archetypal knowledge of humanity itself. The process of discovering this deeper self requires shedding the false layers that you've built up over the years. Society teaches you to define yourself by surface achievements, external validation, and roles designed to keep you accepted. But these are masks. They protect you, yes, but they also imprison you. Jung emphasized that real transformation begins when you consciously let go of these illusions and allow the unconscious to emerge. Only then can you begin to feel the depth and power of who you truly are. Take, for example, someone like Mia, a high-performing designer whose life looked perfect on the outside. Her calendar was full, her portfolio impressive, but inwardly, she felt numb. It wasn't until a period of burnout forced her to slow down that she rediscovered a forgotten part of herself. A child who once painted freely without judgment. That moment of reconnection was not trivial. It was the beginning of her individuation. Through dreams, therapy, and honest reflection, she peeled back the layers of conditioning and met her deeper self. She didn't become someone new. She returned to who she had always been. Jung believed that individuation, the integration of unconscious material into conscious life, is the soul's journey toward wholeness. This is not a path of self-improvement, but of self-realization. It is not about fixing yourself. It is about remembering yourself. As you move through this process, you may feel resistance, confusion, even fear. But these are signs that something meaningful is shifting. Your ego wants control, but your self seeks truth. And truth often requires letting go of certainty and stepping into mystery. Spiritual wisdom shows us that transformation is not a one-time event. It is a way of living moment by moment, choice by choice. The more you honor your inner knowing, the less you need the world's approval. You begin to act from authenticity, not habit. You become grounded, not just in who you are, but in why you are here. The false self clings. The true self flows. And in that flow, you begin to experience life not as something you chase, but as something that unfolds through you. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." That privilege begins when you stop performing and start listening, when you stop defining yourself by what you do, and start recognizing who you are. Beneath the noise of the world and the chatter of your mind, your true self waits eternal, wise, and unshakably whole. If this message reminded you that you are more than your roles and labels, you're a vast, timeless soul, then don't forget to subscribe for more spiritual wisdom that awakens your true potential. Let's walk this path of transformation together. 9. How to awaken and break free. To begin the journey of spiritual awakening, you must first embrace the unknown. Most people resist what they can't predict or control, clinging to certainty as if it guarantees safety. But true growth only happens in the presence of uncertainty. When you stop trying to define every experience and instead lean into the mystery, life begins to unfold in a way that's richer and more authentic than you ever imagined. The unknown is not a threat, it's an invitation. Carl Jung once said, "In all chaos, there is a cosmos. In all disorder, a secret order." When you welcome the chaos without needing to solve it immediately, you allow a deeper truth to emerge. The next step is letting go of fixed labels and roles. Maybe you've spent years being the responsible one, the achiever, the caretaker, or the rebel identities assigned to you by your family, culture, or past experiences. But those labels are not the truth of who you are. They are survival strategies, masks meant to earn love or avoid pain. The process of spiritual awakening demands that you question each of them. Are you really that role? Or have you simply forgotten that you're so much more than what the world expects of you? Finding yourself is not about adding something new. It's about shedding everything false. Listening to the unconscious is how you begin to hear your soul again. Your dreams, your gut feelings, those moments of synchronicity, they all hold messages from the deeper parts of your psyche. Jung called this the path of individuation, the sacred return to the self. In a world that shouts constantly for your attention, learning to listen inward is an act of rebellion and of freedom. Your unconscious holds the blueprint of who you truly are. It's speaking through symbols, images, and feelings. The more you ignore it, the more distant you become from your truth. But the more you honor it, the more whole you become. Surrendering to the process is perhaps the hardest part. Awakening is not linear. It's not a straight path upward. It's a spiral that revisits old wounds from new levels of consciousness. There will be setbacks that feel like failures and insights that feel like miracles. One day, you'll feel expanded and clear, and the next, you might feel like you've lost all progress. But this is the nature of deep transformation. Jung believed that what you resist not only persists, but grows in size. Surrender isn't giving up, it's giving in to the wisdom of the journey. Trust that the process itself is shaping you into someone capable of holding deeper love, clarity, and power. You were never meant to stay the same. The soul longs to evolve. Every part of this unfolding, every release of an old belief, every question you dare to ask, every emotion you allow yourself to feel is part of the sacred return to yourself. Spiritual awakening isn't about becoming better. It's about becoming real. And once you commit to this path, life will never be the same again. To affirm your commitment to awakening and inner freedom, comment below, "I choose to awaken." Let this be your declaration, one step closer to breaking free from old patterns and stepping into your true self. Your words may inspire someone else to begin their own journey. 10. Final revelation. You were never lost. You were never truly lost. Beneath every moment of confusion, every identity shaped by fear or approval, your real self has always been present, quiet, waiting, whole. You didn't have to become someone new to find peace. You only had to return to what has always been within you. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And that is not a destination. It is an awakening, a spiritual wisdom that arises when you stop seeking externally and start remembering internally. From childhood, you were handed roles. Be good, be quiet, be what others expect. You learned to survive by adapting, by silencing your inner voice and performing according to the script written by others. Slowly, the mask became a second skin. Yet, beneath the surface, something restless remained. That quiet unrest, that subtle discomfort, it was your soul knocking, asking you to come home. You see, spiritual awakening doesn't begin with learning something new. It begins with unlearning who you were told to be. Life only begins when you dare to live from your real identity, not the one shaped by fear, trauma, or societal pressure, but the one anchored in truth. And truth doesn't shout. It whispers through intuition, through dreams, through moments when the outer world falls silent and your inner world speaks. That's when you feel it. The power, the softness, the clarity. Your real identity is not about status or approval. It is the wholeness that exists when all your parts, your shadow, your strength, your wounds, your gifts are allowed to coexist without shame. That's where freedom lives. The choice is yours. You can keep living fragmented, wearing masks, hiding pain, chasing validation, or you can step into the raw, honest fullness of who you were meant to be. And that fullness is not about perfection. It's about integration. Jung taught that wholeness is the goal, not being flawless, but being fully alive. When you stop compartmentalizing and start embracing every part of your being, something miraculous happens. You begin to experience a life that flows, not forces. You move with inner peace, not external pressure. You stop surviving and start living. You were never lost. You only fell asleep to your essence. But now, you are remembering. And that remembrance is your return. Not to who the world wanted you to be, but to who you always were. That is the deepest spiritual wisdom. That your soul was never broken, only buried. And now, as you rise, truthfully, wholly, unapologetically, you reclaim your life, not as a performance, but as a sacred embodiment of your true self. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the profound teachings of Carl Jung. Remember, life doesn't truly begin until you find yourself, until you peel back the layers of expectation, fear, and illusion to uncover the essence of who you really are. It's not about becoming someone else. It's about coming home to yourself. If this message resonated with you, help us spread the light. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and don't forget to subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. Make sure to turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the powerful insights we have coming next. Your path to deeper self-awareness is just beginning, and we're honored to walk it with you.